T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Kush's Corner here on the Trap Talk Reptile Network, the coolest reptile network in the world. Tonight is going to be a very good one for sure. I'm joined by Jason Hood of Snakes Unlimited, of Spilotes fame in particular. We are also going to get into some quail breeding talk as well, and if time permits and we get to it, we were going to definitely discuss some of the other amazing species he works with, from bull snakes to cave racers, black-headed pythons, and much, much more. But before we get into that conversation, as always, USARC. So USARC is the organization that is fighting for our rights to keep our reptiles, to run our reptile businesses, to live this lifestyle. Check out usarc.org for all of the information you need to know about the organization and for the updates on new legislation that has hit on either local or national levels, and then updates on said legislation. That website is also where you can become a member of USARC. As a community, we have strength in numbers, and the more people that are behind USARC, the better. And here we are. Thank you for everyone who is tuned in live. Thank you to everybody tuning in after the fact on YouTube or on the audio platforms. If you are here on YouTube and you are not already subscribed to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. A new podcast drops every single day of the week here from some of the best podcast hosts in the game, talking about a wide variety of topics from within the reptile industry. But as I said, we are not only here on YouTube, we are on the audio platforms as well, be that Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Play, wherever you get your podcast content from. You can find us. A follow, 5-star review, and a comment on those platforms would be most appreciated. With all that housekeeping out of the way, without further ado, let's bring Jason onto the show. Well, man, thank you for joining me today. I'm very excited to finally have you on and talk to you again.
Oh, man, thanks for having me on. That should be fun.
I'm not sure if you would remember little annoying-ass kid Steven running around Reptile Fest, but you're probably one of the earliest people I met in the industry, whether you know it or not.
You mentioned Andy Sagan as your pediatrician,
Yeah.
and I distinctly remember him saying, "Oh, I got one of my patients in. He's super smart kid. He's really into reptiles. I got him right behind me or right next to me here at the table." So you were like right behind me at the, I don't know if that was the year Gavin and I had the tree boas set up.
Yep, I remember.
Was it that same year?
Yeah. Kind of that, like the U that you guys had there with all the neodeshes with the tree boas in them.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I did not make the connection that was you later on. And also, you've been perpetually like 19 years old for over a decade to me,
essentially.
Because like you showed up at Tinley and I thought you were older than you were, and apparently you were much younger than I thought you were.
Yeah.
And then you kept being there, and you never really seemed like you got any older, but you were always like, in my mind, like you were hanging out with us in Tinley. So I'm like, he's got to be late teens. He's definitely not a young teenager. And then I guess you were a young teenager, and you should not have been hanging out with us at Tinley, especially in those years.
You're probably the only person from around the Tinley scene who wouldn't have noticed me getting taller, considering you're about 8 feet tall. So everyone's short to you. So everyone's like, "Oh, all of a sudden you're an adult now," and you're like, "You're still a little child to me, damn it."
But you were always tall, though. I mean, you were you were not tall when you were next to Andy at Reptile Fest, because that person and you is not the same person in my brain. But all the Tinley pop-ups, I've always recognized you as you, but you should not have been in our hotel room. It's
big lesson
there.
Not have, but I definitely I snuck my way in.
You were. We should have been carding at the door. We just didn't know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. It's so. And then, like, how old are you now?
I'm about to turn 25.
Yeah.
So I'm still 19 theoretically.
Yeah. It's because it's been well over a decade at this point, right? Because you were like, even more than that. You were like 13 or something. For the Reptile Fest, weren't you?
Yeah, that particular Reptile Fest, I was probably 12. So, and I had been going to Reptile Fest since probably 2006. So I've been around for quite some time, despite being only 25. Just was, very fortunate. Like the Nature Museum was walking distance from where I grew up. So,
nice.
I'm not sure I made it to any of the meetings until we had moved a little further west. But still, it was like a 10-15 minute drive from the Nature Museum. So, it's kind of
the Notibart, not the Wildlife Discovery Center.
Yeah, no, the Peggy Notibart Museum in Lincoln Park. So, yeah, I was about an hour away from the Discovery Center at that point in time in the city. So, either my parents would drive me up, or I would take the metro, bike there to the metro, take the metro to Lake Forest, then bike to the Discovery Center. So,
like 14, 15 years old.
Yep, 13 even for some of it.
We didn't know. No one knew.
Yeah, I guess that's what happens when you're 6'1" at 13. You can get away with a few things. So
yeah, you should have been checked a few times along the way. It sounds like.
Yep, but we made it here, and I'm about to be able to rent a car. So that's the last thing I have to check off the list, except for being president. That's the only other thing I can't be yet. So, but enough about me. So I bet most, if not everyone who's listening to the show is familiar with you. But for those who may not be, kind of give us a little bit of a rundown of your, at this point, quite storied history in the reptile industry.
I think like the one of the biggest leg ups I got from anybody was Kathy Love. When I was moving to Chicago, reached out to the Chicago Herp Society and talked to a few members there and told her I was coming, and I was a young punk kid that she thought could do something good up there as well, and really pushed me to go, because I don't know that I would have. I was going to Herp Society meetings already, but I think I would have maybe been a little more intimidated to go there. But she kind of insisted, yeah, you definitely need to go, and then put in a good word for me. So I got in there, and then getting into the CHS, like I was down here, I was going to the wholesalers, I was jobbing, I was doing all the things I thought were the right things to do, and I was already getting kind of emotionally overwhelmed by the frequent death of the wholesale buying animals. It wasn't for me.
Sure.
Like some people can do that and they're fine with it, and having dead animals every day is part of the game, and that's just how they play. And I already made my way through that to where I just did not want to be involved with it anymore. And I was cherry picking the very best stuff I could, and I was still getting dead animals frequently, and it wasn't a good scene. And when I moved up there, like that was the first thing for anybody's mind. And then like there was the weird vibe with the Lee Watson swap, where there were guys who were basically buying from guys like me who were picking up the stuff from Strictly or any of the other wholesalers down here, and then resell them online. And so I ended up knowing some of those guys just from selling some stuff, but it wasn't where I wanted to be. And then like the CHS was, despite what other people say, to me was very welcoming. And
for me too. Yeah.
The scientific mindset they had there, not that it's scientifically minded, it's not the wholesale flipper that people use Latin terminology. I was told here, don't even do that. It makes you sound like a snob. And then I thankfully got into it there. But joining the CHS was like the best thing for me. Ended up making some nice connections, getting good animals, and really changing my game quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I've been in the hobby since the late 90s. Just not doing anything really big time until the late 2000s here, 2000 teens. But I've been around for a while. I started out mostly with Melks, Kings, Rats, Colubrids in general. Got into the black-headed pythons because I had an opportunity to get them. to a guy trying to sell off zoo stock that wasn't really his to sell, maybe, but those are other stories for other Kinley times. But I mean, not that they were illegal. It was just find out after later on that maybe the gentleman doing the selling shouldn't have been in the way he did it. But yeah, we can off air that. But it got me into the blackheads, which was awesome. And then I produced some of the best blackheads by just holding the right couple animals back for a number of years till I moved. Now in the last 4 or 5 years since I moved, my building is doing something, and it's just playing nightmares with me trying to get stuff to breed. I don't know. I bought this property because I got a 30 by 50 building. Yeah. The house is okay, but the building that's a reptile building.
Yeah.
And
it's a big reptile building. My gosh.
Yeah. I think I'm just staying too warm. But that's where I'm at now, just trying to figure out the building and get stuff going and concentrating on 1 or 2 species a year to really try to make sure they go.
Yeah.
And this year it was striped tigers.
Yeah, sure was. Yeah, we'll definitely get into that. I mean, I've been following that project of yours for feels like years now. So to see it come to fruition, it's
almost a decade.
Yeah, I can only imagine how that felt for you.
Maybe more than a decade, actually.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. I'll let you lead the dance here. I don't know where you want to go first or last or next.
Yeah, well, I guess before we get into that, I want to kind of go back a little bit, kind of talk a little bit more about the herp society, because that kind of culture and approach to herpetoculture seems to be pretty vacant in the current state of the hobby today. I mean, I'm not even sure how many truly functional herp societies there are around the country still, especially I would have to assume COVID knocked out a decent amount of them that probably never recovered. What do you think? Say again.
Go ahead.
No, I was like, what do you think that type of community does to one as a keeper, and then also just the reptile industry hobby as a whole?
CHS definitely spoiled us. The CHS was not your average herp society. Right. Your average herp society did not have a $40,000 to $60,000 a year budget that they operated on. We had a whole different setup than everybody else, but we got that money by putting on Reptile Fest as a not-for-profit, hands-on educational show, no animals for sale, as you well know. And that raised, I mean, bad years it was $30,000, great years it was $60,000. And on the great years, it just meant we put more into grants, and we were able to try to bring in speakers from further away. So we could actually, I don't know, we really pulled anybody. We had out-of-country speakers, but we didn't pay for any out-of-country flights. There were speakers that were coming into the country anyway, and we got them to fly in from wherever they were landing to do whatever they were doing elsewhere. But we had, I mean, you know, we had amazing speakers, and just hearing something that you think you're not going to have any interest in at all because it's just not your niche or whatever, and then you have somebody that's passionately studying something for sometimes decades of their life, presenting in an hour and a half what they've spent 1 to 10 to 20 years on. You get so much passion and knowledge and questions in your head, like, well, what they just said, so what does that mean for this? If you pay attention, you really get into it. The CHS was amazing for me, my personal growth. Sure. I feel like I was just an absolute clown prior to joining that society, and came out slightly ahead of the game, but miles ahead of where I would have been without them. For sure.
Absolutely. I mean, what do you think the impact would be on the community of more herp societies? I know it's hard because the CHS has such a history behind it, but if that type of mentality was a little bit more widespread these days.
It's unfortunately, podcasts are one of the things killing herp societies. YouTube, social media. It's people won't spend the time to go unless there's sales events or something. So they most people want to attend a reptile show / talk, kind of like what they're doing with Kluber Fest. That's kind of what, if people are willing to go to talks, they're willing to go to talks if there's a sales aspect associated with it.
Sure.
The problem with that we had at the CHS prior to me ever getting there was they would have 400 people show up for the meeting, and then the business portion would end, the pregame would end, and the speaker would get up, and 300 people would leave. Still, 100 people for a herp talk is great, but it looks terrible to the speaker to have 2/3, 3/4 of the room clear out right before they go to talk. Like, how bad is my reputation at this point if that's what happens? You know, it was, so they quit allowing the sales, and that's what spawned the Lee Watson swap originally. Is Lee Watson said, well, if you won't let us have sales there, we'll do it at my barn, and there, and started a whole show industry there. But all that said, minus the sales aspect, you're inundated with information, and information is knowledge. Knowledge is power, and we're able to do more. US ARC is great. I mean, wearing the shirt right now. I love US ARC, love Phil, but Chicago doesn't have herp laws in a huge part, in a major part, long before US ARC because of CHS.
Sure.
And Bob Baversha being one of the biggest obstacles to laws, not because he fought laws, but because he showed up to all the aldermen's street parties to volunteer his time. So it's a layered effect. If you have people that are involved in a society, in a group together, that are like-minded, that want to get together to promote reptiles, you get a different vibe out of those people than you do just individuals. So now you got a group think where we're trying to come up with solutions, and people have different ideas outside the box of what I might think. And here's a great idea you have. I got a mosquito killing me out here. But with that, then you also have the opportunity to volunteer time and get out to do things and show up to events, show up to places. And that showing up, that it sounds silly, but showing up to an alderman's block party and being the highlight of that block party, where the people tell the alderman, which if you're not from Chicago is basically a mayor, but the people tell the mayor of your community that guy was amazing. That was the best part of the show. My kids loved it. When somebody comes in from an animal rights group and says, hey, we need to pass a law here because you guys have, monkeys and cobras being sold around town, he might come talk to you. And we already have an in because we're volunteering our time. And that's where we're losing out. Like, it's the meetings are a level. It's one layer of the onion that people don't even understand without being involved with them, where the rest of that onion is, and the layers you have, and what those layers protect you from. And it you know what I mean? Like, it's a much bigger thing than what people just think about as a herp society meeting. And so they're horribly in need of being around. Unfortunately, I think because of our modern society, they're not going to do well going forward, because we have too many other options to get the herp nerd on. Yeah. But you run a great podcast. I don't have free time. I listen to your podcast and Kluber Radio and a couple other podcasts, and I don't go to Herp Society meetings. There's a Herp Society here in Orlando. I don't have the 3-hour round trip plus 2 hours on site to give to that, unfortunately. Yeah. No, for sure. I get that. Yeah. So would Bob, he would set up the whole gator pen and everything on the block parties? Yeah. Oh my God. Wow. They never did that in my neighborhood. That would have been, I would have been there all day long, annoying Bob, but knowing him, he could have talked my ear off longer than I could have standing there. So yeah, no, he's people, he's a very large personality. People have varying opinions of him. I honestly did not like Bob when I first got up there, and grew to love the guy. He's Saint Bob, man. He's such a great guy. I thought a lot of what he presented as himself, like, it couldn't be real. It had to be show. So I felt like he was lying to me. And in turn found out, no, he was like one of the hardest working guys in that herp society. When I ran Reptile Fest, it was him and his son, Dan, were the last two people out of that building besides me, and I had to secure the building. And we were there setting up for a couple days beforehand. They were there before me, leaving after me on Sunday. I mean, they absolutely the hardest working guys in that society. And then, like I said, his outreach played major roles that people have no idea about.
Yeah. I mean, most people who are listening to this podcast probably don't know the name like that.
Right.
This person means nothing to them.
No, he got clowned by being Alligator Bob when the Chance the Gator. When one of the gators got loose and one of the Florida guys went up there and snagged it in 15 minutes. Bob didn't want to snag the gator. He thought, it's too small. I can penetrate its skin. I don't want to harm the animal, so I'm going to put out traps. And one of the St. Augustine Alligator Farm guys ran up there and was like, throw a hook, pull him in, get out of here. You got things to do. And, captured him in 5 minutes. So made him look bad, but he was doing what he thought was best for the animals. And I just don't think he had the experience of snagging gators to know you can do it without really harming them. Or I mean, I don't know any better. I don't know one way or the other whether you really do harm them and at a 3 or 4 foot size, if that really is safe for them or not. You're hitting them with a treble hook. It can't be great.
I can't imagine so.
Yeah. But he so one of the reptile fests, everybody always talks about guns in Chicago being, well, if gun laws worked, then why there's so many guns in Chicago? It's because Indiana. Also, we have a law against alligators and crocodiles and crocodilians in general. We had 14 or 16 species of crocodilian on display at Reptile Fest 1 year that all came in that calendar year. Well, no, I take it back. There was a couple that were animals that had come in previously that he had kept. Not a single animal was purchased. They were all confiscations, surrenders, or captures. And I remember it was 14 or 16 species on exhibit. And at that time, I think there was 23 species recognized at the time. All of those came out of Indiana. We had over 90 gators in one year. And Bob, all of that was Bob. Bob kept all of them in his basement, transported them across the country to whichever place they were going.
Yeah.
On his own dime. We'd have to stick a check in his pocket when he wasn't looking to pay him for his gas and his stuff. So people can say whatever they want about Bob as far as him not capturing that one gator. He's done a lot of great things and never asked for any recognition on any of it.
Sure.
Great guy.
Man,
but the point being, we need more of those kinds of, and there's plenty of those guys out there, but with the society, you can focus that energy. Otherwise, he's just a crazy gator guy. But we were focusing him to do things and giving him an outlet and supporting him when we could as a society, and put him in contact with people he wouldn't necessarily have contacts with otherwise. And likewise, he made a bunch of contacts for us, which was fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So how long into your tenure at the Herp Society did you become president?
6 years in or something.
Okay.
I was member at large, then sergeant at arms, and then vice president for a couple of years, and then president, then vice president again, then president again. My favorite was vice president, though. That was pick your speaker. It's kind of basically your job. Pick your speaker. Who do you want to talk to?
Yeah.
And the CHS had such a great reputation in the academic world. It was like whoever I wanted.
Yeah.
For my tenure in there, I got suggestions. I took suggestions, but there was definitely at least 4 people a year that were my exclusive picks that I want this guy, which that was amazing. Cause no one, the only person that ever said no, and it was simply because of his age, was Dick Bartlett.
Okay.
I asked Dick Bartlett to come up and he's like, sorry, man, I'm just not traveling anymore. Yeah. I would, 10 years ago, I would have done it for you, but CHS is great. I'm not traveling.
Fair enough. I mean, what were some of your all-time highlight speakers that came through?
Yeah, we had so many. I mean, a lot of academics that people aren't going to know them unless they're in the academic world. Like one of the most inspirational people we had in there, I don't know if you made it to that talk, was Karen Eckhart with the sea turtle conservation projects.
I believe so.
She came in and had us all just her personality had us ready to jump out the windows if she asked us to. She was so inspirational, easily could start a cult if she wanted to. you wanted to do whatever she said. She was, I don't know, she was amazing. But she was convincing people on the islands down here not to capture turtles, to carve them for jewelry to send to China. That's what they were doing. So all the endangered sea turtles, they're netting them and capturing them in these islands and carving up their shells, eating the meat. And she just talked to them. She's explaining, she's like, guys, I just said, hey, do you like killing the sea turtles? And she says, no. Most of them said no. So she said, okay, well, why? Why are you doing it? She said, well, I need to make money. I need to do something to make money. And we carve the shells to sell. And she goes, okay, well, there's a slaughterhouse over here slaughtering all this cattle for the island for all the tourists to have food. So we're shipping cattle and goats down there, and the goats are being eaten by the locals. The cattle be eaten by the people at the hotels and such. And they had all these bones left over that they were just grinding up to get rid of. They couldn't do anything with them. She goes, can you carve those? So, we don't know. So she got a bunch of the bones from the place, the slaughterhouse, brought them to the guys, and they started carving them. And within 6 months, she got not obviously not everybody, but she got a huge group of people to quit killing sea turtles.
Wow. That's
just
amazing.
by asking. And it's like, it was neat to have it, because I think Americans in general have this idea that we need to go tell people how to do their things better.
Yeah.
And she's like, that doesn't work.
Criticisms of us. Yeah.
You have to ask them. You have to talk to them. You have to find out what they need. Why are they in the spot they're in? So she was like, and probably nobody knows who she is. Widecast is her organization, if you want to try to look her up. And she still to this day sells little jewelry that's fantastic, and it's because it's bone, it attaches, it rubs on your skin, it turns into almost ivory like after wearing it, because your skin kind of makes it really super soft and shiny.
Oh wow.
It was fantastic stuff. Like it was such like a neat thing. And then she was having them take all the shopping bags, because down on the Caribbean islands they have all these different colored shopping bags, and they were turning that plastic into weaving material to weave purses and sandals and stuff. And then she was selling that to people, and then taking the money back and handing it to them. Like she wasn't profiting. It was just, let's get the bags out of the sea turtles' stomachs. Here's how we do it.
Wow.
Like let's like, and it's not, that's not a concept that I would ever come up with. Like that's not how my brain works. But just having people like that just like I said, it's such a different vibe from what, especially like the male testosterone driven brain thinks about. Like, I don't know, but I mean, we had Brian Greg Fry in. That's all I think is Dick Bartlett now, but the BOA couple of VPI.
The Barkers.
Barker, yeah. We had him in. I mean, we had just absolute tons of people in. There was such fantastic speakers that came through. Without looking at a list of them right now, I can't even think of anybody though. Yeah.
Well, those few right there are incredible enough. Yeah, that I wish I was a little bit older when I was around, because I feel like I didn't get a chance to fully appreciate what was happening around me. And not living in Chicago for a while makes me really appreciate all that city had to offer.
And the food. God, the food.
Yep. I have not found anything comparable. So
yeah,
but can't even keep a mangrove snake there if you wanted to. So it's pretty limiting. But anyway, so now I kind of want to transition into a little bit of the history of the Spilotes genus in the U.S. hobby, which is really, there are two people whose names are synonymous with that. One would be yourself, the other would be Gavin Brink. And, unfortunately we lost Gavin way too soon. If Gavin was around during like this era of reptile podcasts, those would be some of the most listened to reptile podcasts. I mean, I can only imagine what Gavin would have been like on podcasts. Those would have been podcast gold.
It would have been interesting to see if he could pull off a guest appearance of Mace Montana.
Yes. And with AI these days, he probably could have had that superimposed onto his face, and
yeah,
that would have probably worked. So,
oh, Gavin. Yeah, no, so when I went to Peru, I came back and I was all about Sulfurious, and he happened to have just bought, ironically, from a pet store 30, 40 miles from my house right now. He bought some of the first Bacillinotus I'd ever seen in the country. At that time, Susi Bacillinotus, and it was Susi Sulfurious, which is what I was interested in. Yeah. And he was all about them, and I was all about Sulfurious. And then I bought a couple that were listed as Sulfurious. They came in as Bacillinotus, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm keeping these stupid bird snakes now. And then I got heavy into the Bacillinotus for a while. But yeah, no, he was a major influence in getting me interested in stuff. My ignorant ass didn't know anything about the Tamaulipas locality Mexicanus, and the year that Brad Chambers and I'm trying to break the guy's name, Ron Tremper bought the pair at the Daytona auction. That ended up being two males. Brian, Susan, and Gavin were pissed that I wasn't there bidding on them and getting them pictures and everything else. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. What snakes are you even talking about? I don't remember. They weren't saying Mexicanus. I don't even know what verbiage they were using to describe them. I'm like, I don't know what you guys are even talking about. They might have been saying Tamaulipas, and I didn't know what it was at the time. But yeah, long story short, they're like this and showed me a picture. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. Yeah. No, I definitely did not see those. And that was obviously one of Gavin's big obsessions. So that once those became available and John Anderman got those together, that was definitely a thing for all of us to go chase after.
Yeah. So are the ones that are in the US now descendants of those original animals? So I talked to Colette from Gladys Porter Zoo, and apparently they were doing a sea turtle study in Tamaulipas, Mexico, on the coast. And while they were doing that on the beachfront, doing the sea turtle work, they turned around and there was a tiger rat in the mangroves. So someone went up and caught it. They're all looking at it. They're amazed by it. They told the locals, hey, any more of these around? Are these common? What's going on with these things? I'm like, yeah, sure. And I believe it was 8 individuals that were captured, put onto the zoo permit, and brought into the country at that time. Okay.
So that's the story I got from her. I don't know how many others were entered into the country in other fashion, but sure. The legal stock from Gladys Porter Zoo, which is what I have, okay, it came from that original interaction of sea turtle work.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, why are they so rare these days? I guess, to put it in a simple question.
Well, the tigers are not long-lived, and they're not late to mature, but they're not breeding at 18 months. You really, they're not even, I don't want to say large. That puts people off thinking they're large. They get to 7 feet. If that's large to you, then okay, they're large, but they're a thin-bodied animal, so it's really not that big. Yeah. But they need to reach a 6-7 foot length and then go from that teenager to adult body structure to be breedable, which is generally 3 to 4 years, maybe 5 years for people, for the snakes. They don't go much further than 15 years. So right when John Anderman started producing them, all of the zoo stock that was around the country that Gladys Porter Zoo had placed with various zoos through the AZA started dropping. So prior to that, a bunch of the captive animals that were out there, or the private sector animals that were out there, started dropping. That's what inspired John to get in there. John Anderman does not get enough praise for. I don't know. First, I don't know how, because if you told me, hey, I'm breeding these over here at my place, I'm doing great with the Honduran locality, you want to send me your lone Tamaulipas locality, male or female, as a breeder loan, I tell you to take a hike. Let me know where you got the. he ended up putting together from like, I think 5 or 6 individuals, a group of 8 or 9 animals, I think it was. And of those, they were all old, almost all of them were ancient, cataracts, arthritis, just not great shape.
Yeah.
And 1 pair bred, which was a Gladys Porter zoo animal and a Black Pearl animal.
Okay.
So John got his agreement he had with everybody is he would take 1/3 of the clutch, and whichever parental animals produced, those 2 people would also get 1/3. So he got his first third and then did it again. And I think those animals then died and a year off. And then he had his first his first F1s, if you want to call them. That's not F1s, but you know what I mean? Like his first production that he had produced for him.
Got it.
And in the meantime, Gavin got 1, I got 1, like a bunch of onesies went out here and there because no one could afford or be able to get the animals from him.
Sure.
But they're super rare. He did a great job for all of us. You just keep him alive in this country, and that's what I'm trying to do now.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like a lot of people who are kind of tiger rat casuals may not even know about them. Just because, I mean, if it's not you or 1 or 2 others, no one's even making them public online. But once you're familiarized, it's like that there's nothing else to me in the colubrid world that can top a pure Tamaulipas locality tiger rat.
Yeah, for real. I just had some 75s hatching out. I sent you a couple pictures of those.
Yeah.
They're beautiful. They're not the pure animals. I mean, that thing's gorgeous.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I love it, but I'm also just so heartbroken I don't have the pure animals this year. My female swelled up. I could count 7 eggs in her. She still has some girth to her, but she just dropped back out. Yeah. She's not going to drop any eggs for me at this point. All I can do is try again.
Yeah. No. How many did you keep from your clutch in 2023?
I kept back 2.2. I lost one of the females.
Okay.
And that's the other killer with these things is I don't want to make it sound like they die easily, but they will randomly die on you.
Okay.
I was cabining racks. I think air quality is one of the things that is going to kill them. So they're not going in racks. That's why the animals I sent you, they're in Exoterra, Zoomed style glass fronts with better airflow. Once you get them feeding, they poop a lot. And that poop and everything backs up into that enclosed space of a rack. And I think it just burns out their lungs. So I laugh because it's just to keep from crying. But the first pair I got from John Anderman, they were amazing. I was over the moon. Like I was, not a lot gets me going anymore I mean, I get excited, but not to the point of shaking, physically affected by them. And I got them from FedEx, opened the box, and my hand was physically shaking. Yeah. And I called Gavin. I'm like, oh my God, dude, I can't even believe this. This thing is amazing. I said, the animals you just posted, they're beautiful. But you weren't at Daytona, but I had some animals like that on my table. Yeah. And I had a pair of pure Tamaulipas animals. No one even saw the rest of the animals. Everybody came straight to the Tamaulipas animals, and it was the worst thing I could have done. Those were sold online. That I put them out because I basically said bidding on them. Just, top bidder gets them, and a top bidder got them. But it killed my sales for the show.
Oh shit!
I didn't sell a single fucking tiger at that show. I normally will if I bring them, I sell them. Not one sold because everybody wanted that pair.
Oh shit!
They overshadowed the entire table. My sales for the entire weekend were terrible. I thought, it'll be great. I'll bring all this attention to the table. I did that.
You did. You sure did. Yeah.
But nobody looked at anything but the center of the table, 2 displays. Everything else was vacant. I had people ask me like, oh, hey, do you have any whatever? I'm like, yeah, they were on the table. Oh, really? I didn't see them. You have any Cribos? Yeah, there was like 40 on the table. Really? I said, yes. Like, that was my worst Daytona since I moved back down here that year.
Wow. Oh
Yeah.
shit. Well,
but because they're so beautiful, like I didn't know.
yeah.
I didn't know, but I think I'd still do the same again, because it also just exposed an entire show of people to what those things are. And without seeing them in person, you'll have no idea.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely a double-edged sword there. I'm surprised, but it makes sense once you kind of describe what happened, why that would have happened. But yeah, that's absolutely nuts. I'm trying to see if I have any pictures of them on my phone. Or if you have any, you can quickly shoot me, because I for anyone who's watching, I want them to see what these snakes look like, because they're, yeah, you may have better luck than me.
My customer that bought the animals, he's been posting like crazy. I just feel kind of like a jerk to, post my animals on top of his animals. So I don't. Messenger, Steven. There's one of them.
Okay, cool. This makes for
great audio.
Yeah.
That's one of the animals I'm raising up.
Okay. Let me.
So I got 2.1 now, and then hopefully I can get some more next year.
Well, for anyone who is listening at this point of the show, I would very much encourage you to go to the YouTube video to take a look at this snake right here. And if you are on the YouTube, this will be worth the last minute or so of absolutely shit podcasting audio. So it should be here in a couple seconds. There we go. And as soon as it loads, Tamaulipas tigerette. There we go. Holy shit. Holy shit. I mean, you can't convince me that's not one of like maybe the 3 best looking snakes on the entire planet. Like,
and most people's idea of what they are, the reputation of them is that they're these vicious animals, and they bite like crazy. I mean, you can attest to it. They simply just don't, not in captivity. I sent you one more of the babies, so even more ridiculous. But yeah, they're amazing animals in captivity. You've talked about them on here, but let's just go through it. They're a diurnal, visually oriented species. So you basically have a bearded dragon in a snake. You have a monitor lizard in a snake. They're smart. They watch you as you walk in and out the building. My building. They're interested in food, but they're also interested in what you're doing. So no matter where you are in my reptile building, if you're in there and moving, they're looking at you. When I sit in front of my Spilotes section, there's a dozen eyes staring at me.
Yeah.
From every animal that can see me, and they'll even like peek their head just over the corner of the cage so they can just get their eye up to see me, where you can't see me, but I can see you, kind of deal. Yeah. So they're not your normal snake in any stretch of imagination. They're he's not going to listen anyway. He only listens to his own podcast, I think. But Ron St. Pierre kept a pair, actually from Gavin. Gavin's holdback pair from his 50-50.
Yeah. I remember those.
And he was like, man, these are the most fantastic things ever. They're basically monitors. They act like monitors. They behave. They interact with you, but they're just a sleeker, faster monitor. He says he loves them. He's a pure lizard guy. Yeah. I always bust his balls about not being a snake guy, and he gets all mad at me about it. So any opportunity I can get. But he loved these, but he just decided to move on them because he wasn't producing them. Put my phone down so I'm not just staring at my phone trying to find any more pictures. But he absolutely loved them because they were so monitor-like. Yeah. So
no, that's the comparison I draw all the time. I used to keep a nice little variety of tree monitors, and these to me take up what tree monitors used to do for me, and then some. like in like the YouTube videos I film, my Spilotes cages are like my background. I almost get more comments about them in the background than I do about the actual snakes I'm showing on the videos, because it's just so much fun to watch them. Like, because the cages that they're in were actually built for monitors. So they have about a 12-inch substrate dam that I don't obviously use all of it. So they'll kind of like hunker down under the substrate dam and then just pick their head up and look right over the edge of the cage. And it's just so funny.
Yeah, I always want to see what's going on.
Yeah, so they're in essentially my dining room, and if my situation is ever to where I'm not going to have snakes in my main living area anymore, I may make an exception for the Spilotes alone, just because they're such a fun. It's like a painting in your living room that just happens to be moving around and much more beautiful than most paintings would be. So yeah. They're outstanding. But I think kind of to go to back to your point about that Daytona show, they've kind of ruined some people's perception of Spilotes. Because everyone wants this. I had people who reached out to me about my Veracruz animals, and were almost like, well, are they going to be like orange like that when they're adults? I'm like, I don't know, probably not. If you want the Tamaulipas, you got to go to Jason and pay 4 times what you're going to pay me. So like, you're going to get what you pay for here, but they're not, they don't all have to look like this to be an acceptable Spilotes.
Hopefully only 3 times. Get your prices up, man.
No, yeah, it is probably only about 2 to 3 times, but still. But and also have to wait for fucking ever as well, because if there's going to be 1 clutch produced in a year, who are you to think that you're going to get a baby from that clutch? So
hopefully I can do 2 next year. Hopefully, and they double, as you saw. The tigers tend to double if you support them even slightly. Yeah. Sometimes if you don't support them. So hopefully next year I'll get somewhere between 10 to 30 eggs and have an actual real year of production.
Yeah,
which will be nice.
That would be amazing to see. I mean, and we've talked about this privately, and not that this should necessarily be a selling point of these snakes, but it's my current lived experience, and probably been yours. I've never had more demand for a species I've produced in my career thus far, and there's not a close second. And I've produced with the scrub python stuff that no one else has been breeding, and nothing like these tiger rats has gotten attention. So I mean, hats off to you and Gavin, everyone else involved in the project, but for good reason. These snakes are in quite high demand.
Yeah, I mean, my plan was to have somewhere between 7 to 15 this season, and I had some Asian customers that said, okay, we'll buy them. I'm like, I'm not discounting for group pricing. You understand that? It's going to be, that's okay. We'll buy them all. How much for the clutch? I'm like, it's going to be the price times however many animals there are. Okay. Yeah. Let us know when they're available. So like, I can literally produce them, sell them, and never even post them anywhere, and they leave the country. And I mean, ideally and honestly, if I do a large production, that's what will happen with most of the animals, for the express purpose of keeping the market less competitive in this country, because that's just smart business. Yeah. No offense to anybody in this country, but if it's a great market, why would I flood this market here? I've done the same with the Sulfurious. I've sent them out of the country to either Europe or Asia as well. But strangely, the striped tigers, the Asians do not seem interested in, which I don't know why, because they're, I think, absolutely gorgeous. So that's, I mean, for that matter, the U.S. market wasn't interested in them. And that's why they kind of disappeared here. Yeah, so there's my little babies.
This is a great transition, and one that I'm kind of surprised by.
My guess is there's probably a species that's similar there that they don't.
Maybe some of the bias or something like that.
Yeah, that's my only guess. Or they want the bright orange. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but I mean, the striped animals, like I alluded to earlier, I've been following your project with them for quite some time. I mean, wow, those are ridiculous.
They need to be seen in person to really. But my camera skills do not match up to these animals. They're too quick. and they're black heads, the yellow stripe. The side is all yellow speckling, which you don't see here very well. It's then the tail's jet black for the last third of the half to half of the body, depending on the animals.
Pretty well.
I was just going into its first shed there.
Damn.
But those, I mean, I'm going to bring some to Daytona for sure, assuming I still have them.
Okay.
I mean, maybe you'll sell me out just with a great podcast, but I'm going to bring them to Daytona and have them in person. And I think that's all I need to do. Sure. They're just too spectacular in person. Sven, I'm drawing a blank on his last name, in Europe, Sven, who I got these from, he took fantastic pictures of his big arboreal setup. And that's what drew me to them. But the irony of all things is these were originally a Honduran locality animal that was in this country. My buddy Tom Davis down here, he had one that was an orange stripe, which is spectacular. I had it for just over a year maybe before it died. And the simple fact that these can come in an orange stripe is just a whole new world for me. Like I need to make that. And that animal was like 9.5 feet long and just absolutely amazing. I was doing well with the tigers at the time, and he's like, dude, I have nothing to breed this thing to. You got a shot, take it. And so grateful he did that, just to give me time with the animal. But unfortunately, like I said, they're not a long 15-year lifespan, and the animal came in as a large adult when he got it. Who knows how old it was when he got it in, but there's a whole nother color palette available. So to that end, I will have extra Tamaulipas males, and I'm thinking of trying to breed the Tamaulipas to these to see if I can get the orange to jump over like the animal I'd had before.
That would be super interesting.
Yeah, I don't know where the orange came from. But so the point I was getting at is these stopped coming in the country and people quit caring about them, besides the small group of us that kind of always liked them. But I think they quit coming into the country before I was ever aware of them as a species. So I didn't get a chance to be on that end of it at that time. But then you hear from guys, oh, these came in at $10 and $15 a piece when they came in. It's like, yeah, a lot of things came in at $10 and $15 a piece. Boas would come in at $10 and $15 a piece at times. Like, the price point shouldn't be the thing. But when Honduras shut down, they disappeared in this country. Some came out of Nicaragua 2 or 3 years ago. At least one, if not 2 or 3 animals. I saw a striped animal in 3 different pages in the same general timeline, like the same month and a half timeline. So I don't know if that animal just went from A to B to C, or if that was 3 separate animals.
I saw Mike Barrera around probably 2021 or so post this like labeled Nicaraguan, part of a Nicaraguan shipment. This animal had to have been like 90% like a greenish yellow. It was a tiger. Yeah. I'm going to see if I can find this picture. And maybe we'll not just wait for me to find it, but like this crazy, interesting animal that was labeled as a Nicaraguan, but I've never seen anything remotely like this. I don't know.
It was a stripe, or it was a high yellow green.
Good question. Here we go. I found it.
Rob Roy McGinnis he got a female that came in that dropped eggs immediately when he got it. Like the day he received it from Mike, it dropped eggs, and it
might be this snake.
It was a crazy high yellow animal.
I think I remember Rob Roy posting this snake, and then I was like, oh, well, there it went.
Oh yeah, I called Mike immediately, or messaged him immediately. He's like, it's gone. Like, damn it, man.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just high yellow. It's not a stripe or anything. It's just a super high yellow. But I think if you zoom in, if it's the same animal, I don't have my glasses on, but I think if you zoom in enough, you can even see the eggs inside of the animal.
Yeah. Now, I saw this picture well before I'd ever gotten a clutch from a Spilotes, but now that I can 100% see how the snake was more than ready to explode.
And that's what Robin said. He was like, I could see it was gravid. So I said, whatever the price is, send it to me and I'll get you the money. And he got the animal in and it dropped 7 or 10 eggs for him the day it got to his place.
Wow.
Like she was almost dropping them in the bag.
Did anything come of that clutch? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, he's got a few of them. That individual animal has since passed, I believe. Okay. And his son is operating the business now because Rob's, I think, having some medical issues or something. Okay. But they still have that somewhere in the collection, the genetics for that. I got a Ben Siegel had advertised another one, not that nice, but similar, that I paired up this year with actually a Tamaulipas male, but it was a super high color like that because, again, if I can transfer the orange into that, oh my God. Yeah. But I did not get eggs out of her. But she is also a fresh wild caught, so I'm actually going to pair her up again here in probably another month to see if maybe she's still on a different cycle. See if I get lucky with that.
Okay. Makes sense. It's actually a good question here Tim put in the chat. Tiger rats or puffing snakes? What say you, Jason Hood?
And knowing Tim, he's asking about Sulfurious, not Spilotes.
Yeah.
Sulfurious are just a little bit more. Yeah. I don't know what it is, but Sulfurious.
Okay.
They're just, for everything that's magical about a tiger, the Sulfurious has it with a little umph of extra something there.
They're kind of, I almost feel like you could, this might be a bad comparison, but maybe enough of a comparison, especially when it comes to head structure. I feel like you could almost kind of compare it from Australian olive pythons and Papuan pythons, where the Papuan pythons kind of have a little bit more going on upstairs. They have that bulldog head. They're a little bigger. And, just where an olive python is a beautiful snake. And obviously color-wise, you can't really, there's no comparison here, but, even almost more of a tiger rat head structure there, but there's just something about those Sulfurious that it sets them apart from almost every other colubrid in total, I think.
Yeah,
but
no, they're the same, all the same things. They're visually oriented. They're day active. They're watching your every move. They both puff. They both are cage defensive and strike at you, but stop when you pull them out. Mostly, you'll occasionally get one that just doesn't care that you've pulled it out of its cage. It's still going to smack you a few times.
Yeah.
I do get that the Sulfurious are supposed to be venomous, but at this stage in the last 10, 15 years of keeping them, I've taken, 14 years. My anniversary is coming up and it's 14 years. So 15 years. Yes. I got them before we got married. So 15 years of keeping them. I've taken hundreds of bites. And I've had a couple minor, like if you wanted to say bee sting reaction, but more like bad ant bite reaction more than bee sting. It wasn't even as bad as a bee sting.
Okay.
So the venom is such a non-consequential thing in my experience. Venom treats everybody differently. So
sure.
I don't let them chew on me. I've taken smacking bites. They jabs, I guess you'd say. They jab at you once in a while.
Sure.
They don't frequently chew on you, but the Sulfurious just have something for them going for them.
Yeah. No, they sure do. Well, we're about at that hour mark where I'm going to head to the commercial break, but we definitely need to get into some more Sulfurious talk too, and then probably a little bit of Spilotes breeding before we hit that quail topic later on in the show. But that said, we will head to the commercial break real quick. Sit tight, everyone. We will be back in a few minutes.
Sorry for the interruption, folks, but a quick word from our sponsors. Hi, I'm Devin.
I'm Teresa, and we are MORPH. We are based in Czech Republic, a small country in the middle of Europe.
We really love animals that revolve around multi-recessive projects, and one of our very favorites is Hypo. We're really looking forward to clutches that are coming this season, and some of those are Hypo Clown, DG Clown, Hypo DG Clown, and one of our all-time favorites, Hypo Puzzle.
Hope you enjoyed the next episode on Trap Talk, the greatest reptile network in the world.
If you guys want to see next level cutting edge ball python projects, please make sure you head over to their Instagram to follow all their amazing work, and head over to their website to see what they could possibly have available by heading over to progmorphs.com. Thank you again, Devin and Teresa, for bringing some of the biggest heat worldwide in the ball python game. If you want to be organized, if you want to be cutting edge in the ball python game, then you don't want to miss this. Shout out to today's sponsor, and that's Clutch, #1 ball python organization app in the game. No better place to start off than by using this app. Clutch is an organization app that helps you organize all your ball python projects. It also helps your peers and your fellow community members look at what you possibly have coming for the upcoming ball python season, what you have currently available on Morph Market. It's so awesome to be ahead of the game by using organization app like Clutch. Thank you so much, the entire Clutch team, amazing team over at Clutch. If I were you, I would head over to Clutch's Instagram account, and I would also head over to their website, try it out, see how it works for you, but especially if you're just now coming into this, before you build your reptile collection, I would do it organized, and I would do it with Clutch. Thank you, Clutch, for being so amazing. Excited to hear what Clutch has to bring in the near future. Cheers. One of the biggest growths we have in the reptile industry today are the rare species of reptiles that aren't worked with. That's right. That's why I went ahead and partnered up again with Brian Susan over at SUNDOWN Reptiles. Brian works with species such as kahua geckos, gargoyle geckos, all species of tree monitors. He works with abronia and many other cool species geckos that you can check out all on his website. Head over to sundownreptiles.com, see what he has available. Brian's one of the best doing it in the reptile industry today. He's been on the show multiple times, so make sure you check out all of Brian Susan's episodes on Trap Talk Reptile Network. But more importantly, for the highest quality of captive bred reptiles, make sure you head over to sundownreptiles.com and make sure you give him a follow on Instagram. Thank you again, Brian Susan over at SUNDOWN Reptiles. One of the things I love about being a part of the reptile industry is all the learning, okay? Learning can be fun, and I can prove that to you. Thank you so much to today's sponsor. It's Gary Scavino over at gs.reptiles. I highly recommend you head over to his YouTube channel, follow all this man's content when it comes to learning about rare species of snakes you could be keeping in the hobby, and also just finding out how easy a lot of these rare species of snakes are to keep in general. So thank you so much, Gary Scavino of GS Reptiles. Again, head over to his YouTube channel. Also head over to his Instagram to be on top of all of his current work and be ready for a big year over at GS Reptiles. Thank you so much, Gary, for your ongoing support. I really appreciate it. Cheers.
All right, we are back. So Jason may be asleep. No, here we go.
Yeah. I'm trying to find a picture of that stripe, the orange striped tiger for you.
Oh, okay.
I thought about it too late.
No worries. So I want to talk a little bit about the Sulfurious, but in particular the red phase animals. I feel like those animals and you are synonymous. So what was the story of the origin of the red phase Sulfurious?
Good old Michael Barrera. He had some animals. He contacted me and said, "Hey man, I know you're into these stupid things. I got a green animal and a red animal. Do you want them?" I'm like, "Well, do you have pictures?" He goes, "If I could get pictures, if I get my guy to take pictures of them, I could sell them. Do you want them?" I'm like, I guess. What's the price? He threw a price at me. I'm like, Jesus, okay. Like he was just gave them to me. He gave it to me at cost basically, and I got him in, and it was a red Sulfurious and a green Sulfurious. And I was like, well, never doubting Mike again. But yeah, no, it was just an import. And doing more research on them, it seems like they might be a bit more of a, I wouldn't say common, but they occur in the wild a bit more than I would expect for a morph to occur.
Yeah.
So I've never stated they were or were not a morph. I've never tried to. I think it's maybe a form of hypo. I just sent you a picture of one of those.
Yeah.
You know, throw those up so people know what we're talking about in that. But it may be a naturally occurring phenotype. Sulfurious. We only get Sulfurious, like most things from South America. We only get them out of Guyana and Suriname, the top part of the country, and they occur from the middle of South America to the top of South America,
right,
damn near coast to coast. You know, the mountain ranges are their limiting factor on each side, and we get this tiny speck of their genetic diversity and and of course the phenotypes. So like
we
the animal
north of their population.
Yeah, the animal I fell in love with of them was basically that, but in yellow. It didn't have black on it really, and that was a Peruvian animal. Okay, and it was a Western Peruvian animal at that. So there, we just, and I know you've seen the Brazilian animals as well. Yeah, the crazy redheaded ones.
Insane. Yeah.
I don't think we're. We might one day see those in the U.S., but I'm not holding my breath.
No, not at all. Yeah, I mean, same with some of the tiger rats that come out of Brazil as well. And there's some insane stuff coming in Brazil.
I mean, this might be common knowledge, and I'm just a moron and never realized it before, but Brazil has a pretty significant mountain range there, and some pretty significant topography that is isolating the species on each side of it.
Okay.
I don't know why that's never been a thing in my brain, but I was putting together a talk for the IHS and came across the topography, and I was like, holy crap. Like it's worth it if you're not aware of it to look up the topography of South America and Brazil in particular. But that Atlantic slope of Brazil, that's where the Atlantic bushmaster shows up. That's where that boa that was the tree boa that was extinct for 50 years, and then they asked locals near Rio where it was, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's right here." Talking about this one, the Crapani's boa. Yeah, remember that was up in the news all everywhere. That's the same. Yeah. That's all the same region. And the redhead sulfurous and the tiger rats that look like have northern pine patterns on them, where they have enlarged saddle blotches instead of bands on them. So that's I will stand out like a very sore thumb in that if I were to go to that region, but it's definitely a region I want to check out if I could ever get down there safely.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, shout out Patrick Holmes is hooking me up with some pictures right now. He's helping us big time. But yeah, I mean that red-headed appearance, like that animal right there. This is another picture Patrick just sent me. I mean, if those were in the hobby, I mean, you wouldn't. I mean, regular Pilatus would be like $15 snakes. You know, I mean, holy crap! Look at that thing. That's one of the most insane colubrids or snakes in general that you could ever see. Like, what the heck is going on there?
So the original pictures from that I shared, and it was from a nature center in Brazil. They posted on their personal Facebook page, or not personal, their business page, and it got so much worldwide traction for me sharing it that they had tens of thousands of views and almost 1,000 comments on the pictures. Yeah. And I was actually like pointing out to my wife, like, look at how much traffic I've driven to this page. I went to pull it up and they deleted the pictures. They were like, we are tired of the notifications. We're done.
Oh my God. Wow.
But yeah, those two pictures you just shared back to back are the same animal, and they were far more than what the nature center wanted to get out of them.
Fair enough. Well, it's their damn fault for posting pictures of a snake that looks like that. What did they expect?
But that's not it's not. Yeah, it's not really an uncommon look. If you go on iNat and look up the Brazilian animals on iNaturalist, that's like a third of the animals have some version of that red-headed look to them.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is just insane. Like,
oh, yeah.
I was secretly hoping that Bolsonaro would like allow a little exportation when he was taking over. Like, you're going to burn down the rainforest anyway. Let us ship some animals out first.
For real.
But thankfully, he didn't, despite my selfish wants.
Yeah, that, I mean, shoot, to have an animal like this in your collection would be, I mean, it would be an incredible. I love having both the tigers and the puffing snakes because that throat puffing behavior is, you know, noticeably different between the two of them. It's kind of cool to see side to side, like the more vertical puff compared to the like more horizontal puff of the Sulfurious. I think it's pretty cool to see. Or like not horizontal, but like, you know, I feel like my Sulfurious, they don't raise up quite the same way the tigers do. Kind of almost, if you didn't know better, you think they have a really bad RI. Like that kind of puff right there. I feel like I don't see that in my tigers as much as like if this was like laterally compressed, that's kind of more what my tigers do. But
my Sulfurious seem pretty laterally compressed, I think, when they do it.
okay.
I think I get the opposite with mine.
Because I feel like I have a picture somewhere, and I'm not going to go digging for it because I wouldn't find it, of my bigger Sulfurious girl like sitting on her throat, and you're just like, if that was any other snake, you think that thing's going to die by the end of the day, but because it's, you know, one of these, it's like, no, it's actually doing great right now. So
when I was still in Chicago and I got the first two pairs of my Sulfurious in, they were in my living room / bedroom / TV room because I had a little ass apartment.
Yeah,
that's where I slept is where those snakes slept. And the one bedroom of the one bedroom apartment was the snake room, but that was my overflow for babies and whatnot. And I was just laying there in bed, and the lights kicked on in the morning. And I'm watching TV, and at the corner of my eye, I see movement, and it's my Sulfurious female going up underneath the heat light, and she puffed her throat out and sat underneath the heat light and just kind of like did a little side to side motion underneath the heat light, maybe for 10 minutes, and then shot off and was like running around the cage like she got like a dog getting the zoomies. Like she bounced around the cage for a minute, then she like stopped on one of the branches and just kind of sat there for a minute. And I'm like, that was the coolest snake thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, my snake just got the zoomies. But so I don't know if you ever noticed that. I never noticed it again since then, but I think my ambients were low.
Okay.
And it needed to heat up, and it did so and used the air puff to actually heat their body faster.
That's
to
cool.
Disseminate the heat quicker. But yeah, it was really interesting.
Wow. Yeah, that's super cool. I'll have to keep my eye out for that behavior. Can't say that I've seen them do that, but that would be really, really neat to see.
First thing in the morning.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm normally right around those cages first thing in the morning, so I'll have to keep my eyes open. So I guess I want to talk a little bit about breeding. Before that, what are your adult setups like for both your tiger rats and your puffing snakes?
The tigers have 8-foot neodeshas. I was not old enough to actually have bought those myself originally, but they old enough to respect just the big ass cage that they are.
Yeah.
I went down and got some from Miami, and they're just fantastic because they're like 8 foot by 3 foot deep, but they're only 2 foot tall.
Okay.
Again, Ron keeps pushing me to build outdoor enclosures for my animals because he's sure they'll work just fine like they did for him. If I do that, I'm definitely going to go much larger. 8 by 8 by 16 or something like a big flight cage kind of setup, just to see how they do on that. But otherwise, I go from an 8 foot down to the 432 vision cages. So those are 4 wide, 32 tall, and 30 deep, I think they are. Okay. So kind of a large spread of different options there. They do okay in the 4-footers. I feel like they do better in the 8-footers. I can't find 8-footers anymore.
Yeah.
So the 6-foot visions are where my blackheads go. So I'm just out of caging that's appropriately huge for them.
Sure. So what would you say, fully customizing the size, like your ideal, I guess even before that, I'll ask a question to preempt it. Are you cohabbing pairs or are you keeping individuals per cage?
I've decided to pull the males for the non-breeding season.
Okay.
For both species, they're incredibly aggressive feeders, and my male tigers, particularly my male Tamaulipas, are just dicks. They are constantly, they will drop their own food to go steal the food out of a female's mouth and end up swallowing their heads. I've gotten a third of a snake down before I could separate them because they just eat so fast.
I don't feel so alone anymore.
Yeah. So cohabbing is not the greatest with them. But I leave the females together and they seem to do well with each other. I have females separated if I don't think they're doing as well. They're getting bullied a little bit because there is some of that lizard-like behavior where there is some dominance going on. Sure. The striped tiger project took so long because the female was the biggest of the group and she dominated the group. And the males, I put all three together because I'm like, hey, 2 males, 1 female, I'll definitely get eggs. And that went horribly wrong for what the last 4 years of potential breeding years, 5 years probably at this point, maybe 6, because she beat the crap out of the males. The males fought each other and were doing their little dance near her. She just like flung them against the side of the cage and kind of battered them, and they were in mid combat. So they both felt like they got just absolutely dominated by the other male and both became submissive. So combating tigers may be beneficial to get them, or Spilotes in general may be beneficial to get them in the mindset of breeding. But if you're going to do that, I would be very mindful of pulling them before there's a winter, because they shut down for years.
Wow.
That's
amazing.
They were not cool.
Crazy. Huh.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard of that in snakes before. That's extremely interesting.
Yeah. And that's what I've said in multiple podcasts. You need a good breeder male. If you have a good breeder male, he'll go through 4, 5, 6 females. But that if he's just passive or the females are bigger or more dominant, they can get knocked around and not want to do anything with anybody.
Yeah.
And just once they get smacked around a little bit, like even just a little bump like they tend to do, they like, instead of staying on the female and riding her, and as she bumps, grasping her like they do, they'll kind of like fall off and go the other way.
Yeah.
They were doing that for years. So I had totally separated them, left them all individualistic, and then reintroduced them this year and got lucky where they actually did something for me. But
okay.
At least in my experience.
Did you do anything to kind of reprime those males, or just let enough time pass before they felt like breeding again?
I gave them individual enclosures. And so one group of normal Honduran females, I threw the striped male with them. I didn't reintroduce those 2 males together again this year. Like I kept doing it and not getting a good result. I put one in and put the other in, and I think just the smelling each other would bring back the beat down, and they'd shut down. So this year they didn't see each other at all. They didn't go behind each other in any enclosures. I didn't try to, because I was trying to get that stripe project for so long. I kept throwing one male in, pulling them, throw the other male in, pulling them, go back to the first male, and it just wasn't working. So I just figured, let me try something different. Let me just leave one male dedicated to that female and see how we go.
Yeah.
And it seemed to finally be the key on it.
Okay. Very interesting. So with that said, for an individual, what do you think like your ideal cage parameters would be fully customizing an enclosure?
They're in like a 5-foot Neodesha. I found those. It's not even 5. It's like 5.5 foot by the 30-inch deep. Weird ass size. I don't know why they had that size, but I've seen a number of them. That 5 or 6 foot wide seems to be good for them because it gives them a chance to do a turnaround when they go into a chase mode, and some height. I mean, 3 foot, 4 foot tall. would be great.
Yeah.
I mean, Gavin had his, what were they, 4 wide by 6 tall enclosures. Okay. And I always loved those. He had that, just that, you saw his animal plastic room.
Yeah, I saw pictures of it. I never saw it in person, unfortunately.
Oh, really?
No.
You got carded there, huh?
Yeah. Honestly, I think I kind of became friends with Gavin a little bit too late, unfortunately. But that would have been awesome to see, because I definitely saw pictures of it, and Gavin definitely put a snake room together.
His entire basement was just one large animal plastic sales pitch. Everything had misters in it. He had thunder. He was such a character, man. He had a rainforest theme music. So he would kick whenever the misters would kick on, the sound of a rainstorm would also kick on the speakers. Just in the light, I think the lights would even dim, like the storm was coming in. Oh God, he was something else, man. Yeah. Fantastic enclosures until he wasn't feeling good, and then he didn't keep those enclosures. Then he got upset with himself for not keeping up with the enclosures, and got more depressed out of it. It's like, God, man, just do what you love, man. Get in there and do it. Yeah. But when he was in prime mode, man, God, he was one of the best. He's what made the Wildlife Discovery Center look so good, man. He just was great at designing cages.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, the 4x6. So what he and John Anderman both got from Animal Plastics was a 4 foot wide, a 4x4 by 2, I think, is what their standard depth is on theirs.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they put another 4x2x2.
Okay.
And then had holes on each side, so the snakes would go up one side and down the other side. And that was Anderman's breeding setup for his Pilatus. Anderman was the man long before I ever thought I could ever breed him. He did multiple years of Hondurans, and then multiple years of the Mexicans, the Tamaulipas animals. And he kind of helped John or Gavin and I get a better idea what we wanted to do with our stuff, and that was his setup. And I really think that's one of the better setups. And then of course Roy Blodgett has one of the best.
Yeah, he took it to the next level.
Cages out there. If you can go Roy, always go Roy.
Yeah.
Good God.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, well, I think that his cage is like 6x3x6 or 8x3. I think it's maybe 8x3x6 or something like that. Yeah. It's massive. So
8x3x6 planted with all endemic species to the region the animals came from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't go.
Hell yeah.
I mean, unless you make an entire spare bedroom of your house, a little slice of the Amazon, so to speak. That's all. Can't go much further than what Roy's done. So
no.
Yeah, that enclosure is amazing.
Yeah, but if you're not an absolute maniac like Roy, then I'd say minimum 4 wide, and if you can get more, everything in captivity short of elephant trunk snakes are they're going to be arboreal. Doesn't matter what it is. Tree boa or sand boas climb in captivity all the time. It's like if you give most things in captivity a small little box, they're going to use all the space provided to them if you give them climbing opportunities. Yeah, these happen to be way more active than any other species out there. The more you give them, the better.
Yeah,
but
100%.
I think a minimum is 4 foot, and no racks. Racks are just not a thing for these guys. If you put them in racks, you're probably going to end up killing them or making them insane.
Yeah. Yeah, for the babies that I produced, I have them still in racks, but huge tubs relative to their size, where it's not stagnant. But I moved them up in size as quickly as I could, for the size of the snakes. So, but yeah, I do agree. At a certain point in time, it's like, what the hell are you doing with the Spilotes in a rack? Put that damn thing in a cage. So,
well, the bigger rack you have when they're small, the better chance of escape there is, because your gaps get bigger.
Yeah.
And the same is true with caging. So you're restricted on gap size and or gap glass gap, or I get it 100%. I use racks. I'm not saying you can't use a rack.
Yeah.
I put some of my Spilotes in a rack, but just be very mindful of your air exchange, the size of the enclosure, keep your cleanliness up, and you got a chance. But then get them into when they put on size quick. When they get big enough, get them into a glass front enclosure, and that's going to be the best thing for you and for them.
Yeah, 100%.
Climbing opportunities, as much as you can give them, they're going to do everything that you didn't know you want a snake to do.
Yeah, no question.
There was a European guy that had like I think an 8x8 by 6 walk-in enclosure for a trio of tiger rats that I just absolutely loved. And he had all planted in there, and he would walk in there, and they had tons of room. And he said using that setup, there was not enough space for him. So I mean, you can go as big as you want to go, and you'll probably still feel watching them do their thing that's not enough space for them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, definitely. I always encourage people to go larger on their enclosures as well. People will ask me, what should I keep them in? And it's like kind of the same thing like what you described, like bare minimum this, do as much as you have the ability to do for these snakes, because they'll reward you as well with some of the coolest snake behavior you'll ever see. So
head bobbing. We even talk about head bobbing with them. They tongue flick. They do the rattlesnake tongue flick, and then they head bob at you. And I have people that, like, I'm sure you the same. Well, I don't know. You just moved, so you don't have the rando friends like I got here from work. But I have non-reptile friends that'll come over, and it's consistently they love the Tamaulipas animals. They love any of the tigers or the Sulfurious that head bob at them. They love gray-banded kings. Like that's just kind of universal stuff there. Yeah, they all love the same stuff every time. Like, this is a black-headed python. They're like, yeah, so what? That's really cute. It's bobbing its head at me. So.
No, absolutely. Well, I want to talk about a little bit of Spilotes breeding. What are some of the main strategies that you use that you think kind of are the most consequential for your success with both the Pilatus and the Sulfurious?
I give them a cool down because everything gets a cool down because the blackheads get a cool down. So whether they need it or not, they get it. It's nighttime cool. Nighttime temps go as low as they go in my building, which can get down to maybe the 50s. But they all have heat lights during the day. So I don't change their heat lights. It's the same heat light. I have incandescent light bulbs in there, 60 watt or 80 watt, depending on which cage size it is. So they have their heat. It's available to them. And they sometimes use it, sometimes don't. Like sometimes it'll be 60 degrees in the building, and they'll be opposite end of the enclosure from the heat, sitting in the cold. Yeah. So I think they do benefit from it. They're not immune to the cold where they're from. There's definitely cold spells that go through their entire range. For sure. And then I bring them up early spring, like February, to try to start breeding them. And hit them with some heavy misting at that time. The heavy misting is definitely a trigger for them entering the rainy season kind of thing. And I hope and pray and cross my fingers and hope it works.
Are you shutting off food during that cooling period?
Yeah. It's a shut off or slowed down. It depends how they're looking. Yeah. And I'm in Florida, so sometimes my cool down period is 80 degrees, and the only cool I have is I have the AC down to 70 or 68 degrees in the building just to keep it as cool as I can get it. Yeah. But yeah, if I get a warm spell of weather, I'll throw them a couple of feeders as well. But if they look like they're losing any weight, they definitely start getting some food because they're mostly going to be eating year round, but they need some cooling for sure. Okay. All right. Yeah, it definitely makes sense. How long are they off of food, generally speaking, if you're able to let them go that entire period? 1 or 2 months, maybe November, December. Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah, kind of. The cool down. I mean, especially it's Florida. We don't really get cool temperatures till end of November, as it is anyway. Yeah, sure. So as long if if I'm in there and they're active and they look like they're going to eat, I'll throw some food to them. If I know we have a cold spell coming up, they go off food for a couple weeks at a time. But November, December, January, then February, I start kicking them back up unless we have a big cold spell coming through. Because our only real cold down here really kind of hits in February a lot of times. So if I have that coming in, the blackheads need it, they're getting it because they're in the building with the blackheads. So they get a little bit of whatever the blackheads get, and I try to support them as the weather allows.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think last year was the first year that I had done any sort of fasting period with them, and I think I did 10 weeks if I'm remembering correctly. And by the end of that, I was like, all right, these things, I need to get them fed again. I felt so paranoid having tiger rats off food for that long. So,
but if you hit them with a small meal or two for that first week, or 2 small meals in the first week, and then hit them with a couple large meals, they go right into a breed cycle anyway.
Yeah, they did. So, it was amazing how quickly all of them went to it. So one thing you kind of touched on a little earlier that I want to come back to is the double clutch ability of these snakes. So I've had that happen to me once now, and my first clutch that I had I've ever produced of them was they hatched in January, so totally off season. She laid in October and they were breeding in like September, and or something like that, or early November. And that was right around the time when I was going to start kind of their cool down. So I kept the male separated from the female, gave her a little bit of food. She looked like she was doing fine. And then I was like, all right, now you guys are going, you're shutting down a little bit. And in February, when I was getting copulation with my other pairs, I wasn't seeing any action out of those, the Veracruz. And then the female went off of food. And I'm like, what the hell is happening? And then she laid the world's smallest slugs, like smaller than follicles. And I'm like, oh, you cycled in pseudo brumation. Oh, so what triggers some to double clutch and some not to, in your opinion? And
they pretty much all double clutch.
Okay.
If you start feeding them at all, they're going to double clutch.
Well, you should tell my Yucatan animal that, because she didn't.
Really? No. I mean, I guess a couple of the females don't. I expect a double clutch at every one of them.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. I thought if I did not mess you, I meant to ask you, saying, "Hey, support her for a double clutch if you got the first clutch." And that's why I tell everybody that has any of the puffing snake complex, the Spilotes, Sulfurious, or Pilatus, all three of, well, not the Sulfurious, but the Pilatus and the tigers in general and the Spilotes definitely are going to double for you.
Okay.
One gentleman in Arizona had some of the fattest Spilotes I've ever seen. He said they're laying eggs nonstop. I'm like, stop fucking feeding them. If you don't feed them, they will stop eventually. But he's like, yeah, I got 6 clutches in a row or 8 clutches in a row. I'm like, God. It's like, none of them are fertile. I'm like, yeah, I
wonder why.
Just please stop feeding that poor thing.
Oh my gosh.
But
geez, that's crazy. So then I guess when you are recovering a female for a double clutch, I guess 2-part question. One, are you keeping the male in with her, trying to get more copulation? And then also, what does that feeding schedule look like to put that size on her and to feed those follicles?
Twice a week feedings, and the male's in there.
Okay.
I get the pizza boxes of chicken chicks, and I do a rodent chick mix meal on Sunday, and then Wednesday my buddy's here taking care of the quail. When I have free time from work and I'm not working till 8 o'clock at night, I have him thaw out a box before I get home, and we hit all the tigers, all the puffing snakes that I expect a double clutch out of, with a couple chicks Wednesday. Okay. So they get a double meal that way.
Okay. Yeah, that may be what I need to do. Is I was just getting a bigger meal once a week, but I may need to just double up that feeding. So
I'm not a person that's going to tell you can't feed a big meal to something, because that makes zero sense in my mind, ecologically, environmentally, evolutionarily. Yeah, I get that with the blackheads. Someone was just asking, and I just did not feel like getting into it with the 5 experts that were telling the person to not feed their animal that was skinny after laying a clutch.
Yeah.
It's a fucking python, dude. It's going to eat. Please feed the thing. But all the experts agree you can't feed them because otherwise they're going to die because they're obese. But with tigers, I small to medium rats about as big as I go with them.
Okay.
And I'll do a small rat and 2 or 3 chicks, or a medium rat and a small rat and a chick, or I'll give them multiple rat meals in a feeding, and usually I'm always following with a chick or 2, just because they process the chicks so quick anyway. They process everything quick, but the chicks go through even faster.
Yeah.
They do fine with it.
Okay.
They're not cheap to feed though. Like my
true.
big 7-footers are getting on their regular weeks, they get a medium and a small, and 2 or 3 chicks, or 2 smalls and 2 or 3 chicks, something like that, just depending on what my rodent guy gives me for smalls and mediums that round.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, I definitely, knowing that, I need to increase my feed on my females for sure.
Yeah, unfortunately the males tend to require that because they're such aggressive bully feeders. A lot of times I'm having to like grab the male out of the enclosure and just hold on to it and try to keep him away from my face, because he eventually just latches onto me and tries to eat my elbow or something. Because he's certain that anything that moves at all is food whenever there's food in the air.
Yeah.
And he'll just keep going after the females. I'm like, I want the females to eat. So I end up having to like 2-fist the scenario and feed with one hand and hold him at arm's length, literally with the other hand.
Yeah, I find myself doing that typically once a week. So
yeah,
I know exactly how you feel there. Yeah, definitely one of the most fun parts of Spilotes keeping.
Well, when I have them separated in individual enclosures, I could slide open 3 or 4 enclosures and just go 1, 2, 3, 4. And by the time I finish getting the 4th one to grab the rat, go back to the top, and the top one's already finished. So I can, all right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and all right, a chick for each of you. And the irony of I can feed a group of 4 tigers 4 food items in less time than I can feed one boa or python a single food item.
Yeah,
it's
yeah. They're definitely a lot of fun to feed.
They're some of the fastest feeding snakes out there too. It's another, I think, a bonus in my mind. I think that's a plus.
Oh, 100%. I mean, seeing, especially like with the chicks or like a mouse, so they can, an item they can take down really fast. It's like shocking to see a snake actually pull that off. Like truly, truly shocking.
The only problem I have with that 4-cage stack is that occasionally I'll stand up again and get smacked in the face because the snake's already finished its meal. And
oh man,
you slow, stupid human.
Oh man. So with your females, once they're gravid, are you getting them to still eat until they are laying their eggs?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they eat always.
Okay.
The only reason they don't eat is if I don't try to feed them.
Fair enough.
Even in shed, they'll eat half the time. They're just beasts like that.
Yeah, for sure.
And they're not. I say how I feed them, and they do get weeks off. There's times I just don't feed for a week or 2, whether work schedule or holiday schedule, whatever else. So I'm not constantly power feeding them or anything. That's definitely not what I'm doing. But they're never obese.
Yeah.
I've seen guys actually get tigers obese, which is, I don't know how. Wow. They must be doing like large rats with them consistently, time after time. Like smaller food items in number, they do not get obese.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay. So how are you setting up and incubating your eggs?
On a shelf. 78 degrees, 80 degrees in the building.
Yeah.
Like, it's a colubrid, man. Throw it on a shelf. I do perlite, shake it. python, like the blackhead pythons, I got to be very exact on my measurements and everything, and to get the eggs that hatch. Colubrids in general, a couple scoops of perlite, a healthy splash of water, shake it around to spread the water around in the perlite, and throw the eggs in, and come back in a couple months. They're the biggest. I think what people have problems with incubating because they oversize their air holes. If you have a snap lid that's airtight and you put 4 small pinholes in it, you shouldn't have any problem with colubrids.
Okay.
In my opinion, I don't. If you've had any issues, anybody has issues, I'm happy to look at what their incubation setup and try to offer opinions. But I've never had issues with. That said, I just had two tigers for the first time ever. I was just talking to my buddy about it today. That did not. They went full term and both had large chunks of egg that was solid inside their eggs. The yolk had gone solid inside the egg, but that whole, it wasn't a lack of humidity. There was a ton of humidity in that egg box. I don't know what it was, but I had 2 of my one of clutch 2 of the animals died in the egg.
Okay.
Which I've never had with tigers. So
I've had 1 in each of my clutches so far, and the second one was the 2-headed monstrosity.
Oh.
Yeah. The first clutch had a 1-headed dead baby, and the second clutch had a 2-headed dead baby in it. So,
like I was telling my buddy today, it pisses me off to see him dead because that's just not something I usually have. So, yeah, I don't know that I did anything wrong because everything else is hatching, and it's the same thing I've done for years. But in my experience, colubrids are just incredibly easy to hatch in most cases. As long as you're not overheating them, they just do their thing.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. How long typically are you looking at on the incubation period with both the tigers and the puffing snakes?
90 days ish is the number. That's a problem with the Sulfurious is I just got a clutch right before the tiger started hatching, and I got 90 days to go from that.
Yeah. So
they're always September, October hatching.
Okay.
I have a second female she's actually a female from Gavin. That is one weird thing. Gavin had a hard time getting his Sulfurious going, and the singular animal I have from at Gavin's group of Sulfurious, and I had it with Bacillinotus as well, that did not feed well. It's got a indent in the spine right where the heart is. And my theory on that is they need calcium in their blood to just get their muscles to work. Without feeding, going through like an anorexic state of not getting it in nutrients, I think they sucked calcium out of their bones and malformed their bones. So she's got like a bent spine, and then the ribs are like collapsed for a section. It was no trauma ever happened to the animal. It wasn't ever crushed or anything, but it looks like it was crushed and stepped on.
Wow.
So I have that female, hoping she'll do something for me, but she goes once every 3 years or so, she'll drop a clutch.
Okay.
It'll be a good clutch, no problems. I've given her extra calcium and whatnot, but if you have an animal that is being difficult to get feeding, which I had in the past before the quail, you can get that spinal and skeletal damage from the lack of food, because they're trying to grow. Even without food, they're still trying to process and grow and move and do stuff. They suck the nutrients where they need to. Sure.
Especially with as high of a metabolism species as they are, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Okay. In fact, I've seen it I haven't seen it in tigers because tigers are they eat. But Sulfurious and Bacillinotus, I've seen it in both of them. I think it's right near the heart, which is what really blows my mind. So I think that it's really just sucking the calcium out of the bones.
Wow.
I don't have a vet that's ever looked at it and went, yes, that's what it is. We've radiographed it. Yes, here's the reduce, but it's what makes sense to me. I don't know why. There's no other reason that an animal that's a poor feeder has the same skeletal damage as another poor feeder if that's not what's going on.
Yeah, that makes sense. So on kind of that note, how are you typically starting your babies off? Are you going rodents right away? Are you using the quail to get them started? What's your strategy?
mean, I have the button quail at the house, so they're just stupidly easy to use. And they're right now I'm actually in between good cycles of eggs, so I'm not getting a bunch right now. Just did a raise up, so hopefully I'll get another nice batch of good, consistent, good eggs as the babies start hatching. But yeah, that they have been a godsend for me, and a bunch of diamond python breeders in particular are buying the button quail from me. And one of your sponsors there, Gary Chavino, he's getting buttons or Cotornix whenever he needs them as well. So the boa and python guys are having good luck with them as well. But tigers in general will take a live fuzzy or large pinky mouse pretty easily if they're not taking frozen thawed. They don't take a lot typically to get going. There seem to be, I think it's one of the reasons they're so much more popular than the other two species in the hobby, is they're just more apt to feed on rodents. Whereas the bird snakes, it's the giant puffing bird snake and the neotropical puffing bird snake. They want birds. Who knew?
Crazy concept.
So I started doing the quail because of them, and everything else is taking quail at this point. So everything like I've never been bit by a gray banded king snake in my life before I started feeding them quail, and I've had multiple times because they're on the top of a 10 high rack, so I actually have to kind of look in to the enclosures and kind of look up. I've had multiple times they come out and at my face just because of movement, because I got quail to feed them. It's amazing the food response everything has to them. But to start them out with the Sulfurious and the Spilotes, I just throw them button quails and they take them no problem. So I don't even try with the rodents.
Or live?
I throw them in live because I got them live.
Sure.
The simplicity of it all. Hit the incubator, and I'm getting somewhere between 20 and 50 babies a day. So I either got to freeze them or feed them. So especially if I don't have quite the 20, I sell in 25 count bags. I put 26 in every bag just to never be. If you call me and tell me I have a 50 count minimum order, if you call me and tell me that one bag was one short, like, okay, cool. The other bag's one over for sure. So the chances of me being too short on a bag isn't not likely at all. But were that the case, the other bag's going to be one over. But if I don't have 26 babies to freeze, I'll grab them and throw them to other animals around because they don't do well in the incubator more than a day or two. So if I don't have them all ready to go to do a freeze out, I'll just feed them off to something. And like I said, everything eats them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I have one holdout from my recent clutch, and be it it's only been 2 attempted feedings, but I'm pretty tempted just to take a freshly hatched button quail, throw it in that tub, and see what that little tiger
Did you get buttons or just Cotornix?
So we have both buttons and Cotornix, and I think Brooke is still watching. I got to give her a shout out. That's really her project. She's the one who's really taking the reins on that one. I pretty much do the rodents, even though she helps me clean them once a week, and then she's the full quail girl. But yeah, we got both buttons and Cotornix now. We got them at the same time, and unfortunately, we had the Cotornix we got ended up being 2.3, and one male was like being all aggressive and picking on everyone up front, so we called him. And then the other male ended up being infertile, so kind of had to start from scratch on those. We actually like ordered some fertilized eggs, and they just hatched out recently. So and they're much prettier than the other quail.
Super important for feeding.
Yeah, exactly. And but the buttons are doing really well though. So we actually just this week had our first round of kind of like day old chick sized animals that we froze off for like indigos and spilotes and stuff like that. So it's been interesting for sure. But definitely one hell of a feeder right there as a quail.
Yeah, definitely. If you got one that's not feeding after 2, throw a quail in. I haven't ironically, the big fear is always getting your animals stuck on a food item. The only animals I have in the collection that get imprinted or stuck on the quail so far have been Honduran milk snakes, of all things. Everything else, mouse, quail, they don't care. Once they get going, they'll take either. I got a couple Hondurans that are just like, no, I want quail. That's all I'm going to eat. And I got plenty, so it's not a big deal. But it's the only thing I've had a problem with. Zach, Dr. Zach, he was saying that a quail rodent on-off or poultry rodent on-off feed cycle produced better growth rate and overall healthy animals in one of the studies he was looking at. I didn't actually hear it. My buddy Scott was telling me about it. He goes, yeah, you listen to this one podcast, because he listens all day when he's at work. I don't have that luxury. I work in hospitals, and they're not cool about people talking about snake poop on your speakers. I'm not allowed to wear headphones. So, all
right.
I'm limited on what I can listen to at work. But, I don't even know which podcast it was he was talking on. It was one he was a guest on. But he said that he distinctly mentioned that, there was a better growth rate mixing the different food options.
Interesting. I'd love to hear that study. If anybody who is listening either live or after the fact knows exactly which episode Jason's talking about, either drop it in the chat or send it to me privately, because I would love to hear that. So on the topic of quail, we promoted it in the in the video here that we were going to talk about it 2 hours into the show, getting onto the quail topic. What's the size of your quail operation currently, and kind of, generally speaking, like how many hours a week are you devoting to said quail?
I probably do it the most inefficient way possible, and I could spend less time doing it. I'm out there first thing in the morning. Like, I'm up at 5. I leave the house by 6, and from 5:30 to 6, I'm out there going through feeding, watering everything, because they go through water so quickly in our setups. Then my wife gets out there during the day. She goes and does another feed, watering. She's generally the one that does the freeze offs.
Okay.
And the Coternics that are outside lay all their eggs right before sunset. And I have the wild rats that'll come take the free eggs. We leave them out there. So when I get home from work, I got to do another run out there and top off food and water and collect all the eggs. But I've got probably 300, 400 adult Coternics and 150, 200 buttons.
Wow.
Outside. When Brooke had asked me about them, my comment was they stink. So if you're going to do them in a small property, and that you can be aware of that. But if you guys are only doing a small number, you can stay way ahead of that. Mine are outside. I've dug a ditch to wash the poops away.
I think you just giving her an unfortunate goal to reach. It'll be good for our feeders, but we may get a knock on the door from either a neighbor or some authority. But
I mean, my problem with it is I don't have the physical time and energy to ship as frequently as I need to go through all the quail I'm producing.
Sure.
So because it unfortunately, like I said, I'm on the road by 6 a.m. The places that have dry ice don't even open up till 7 a.m. and sometimes I'm on a job site already at 7. I'm supposed to be. I'm already late, and then I work till 5, and then UPS stops shipping next day or second day air by 5:30. So my timeline to be able to get everything worked out, it makes it tricky.
Sure.
So somebody said, well, we'll just buy a dry ice machine. So I looked it up, and they're like $2,000, $3,000. Oh, no, like a small scale one.
Oh, okay. Like an industrial dry ice machine. Okay.
Yeah, no, like a small scale one's like $2,000 or $3,000. I'm like, that ain't happening.
Yeah.
I don't know how much it produces either. It's like I think a couple pounds a day.
Yeah, that wouldn't be worth it, but yeah. Okay. So what are your setups essentially? What style of enclosure are you using for your breeders?
I had the buttons in a drawer system. I've got if you've gone on Georgia Quail Farm is where I got the incubators from, and there's another something quail farm that has a plastic setup, 5-high rack basically with the rollouts on them. Okay. And then outside I built my own 8-foot by 30-inch by 20-inch, probably a 30-inch tall on basically legs, cages with rollouts. I've got 2 of those going outside. Okay. So it's a various group of them, and then we just got in some finch cages to try the buttons in those to see if that'll be easier. Okay. Just trying to get more efficient and actually use my time a little wiser.
Sure.
Because I get out there on Saturday and I do a lot of catch up on the birds, and then I'm in for lunch and half my day's gone.
Yeah.
And so it's the birds and turtles and tortoises, and I'm out there playing for a while, according to my wife at least. Feels like work.
Are they wire bottomed cages, the big ones? Okay.
Yeah, I got they've got really good vinyl coated wire mesh that I got that's not inexpensive.
Yeah.
I got some cheaper mesh, and the rats went through it in a night.
Jeez.
And they just chewed through a section to get in underneath my rollout section and just get the eggs. We had I've been doing them for a couple of years now. We had one animal that had a leg chewed off, and that's it for the animals themselves. We've lost dozens and dozens of eggs, and then it seems like they get into the food and just start digging the food out of the food bin and throwing it on the ground. So every once in a while I'll go out there in the morning and there'll just be a pile of food on the ground that cost me money. And it's like, you didn't even eat it. Like, why? It's like they're just being dicks at that point.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. And then so what's like the food and water systems you're using, considering you're running a larger volume?
The chicken style. We just moved up to 3-gallon water containers on the outside enclosures, and then just the chicken. That's what is a 2-gallon chicken feeder.
Okay.
I get the a mix of egg layer, like just general poultry egg layer, and then game bird maintenance diet, because I can't. There is, if you're anywhere where you can still get it, there is a Purina game bird layer that was fantastic for me, but I can't get it anymore. But when I get the egg layer and the maintenance and combine them and just literally just quarter of a bag, and stir, and just mix them up.
Yeah.
My production's about the same.
Okay.
If it's different, I don't notice it. And price wise, it's, I think, $2 different per 50-pound bag. But I'm going through, I think, 200 pounds a week. 4 50-pound bags.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So, to me, it's worth it just to have the available feeders for myself whenever, especially if a bad week and I don't have time to go thaw rodents. And right now the Contornix are producing somewhere around 100 eggs a day. So every day I have around 100 hatchlings.
Yeah.
So if I have a day where I can't do a thaw out and feed, I have 100 hatchlings I can throw through cages. And I'm finally, somebody was asking for grow outs, and I'm finally doing some grow outs myself to get them up to basically day old chick size. Takes about 2 weeks on the Contornix.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you have any issues, you can lose 10 or 20 in a night. They're just, when you get to larger numbers, they're just stupid and suicidal. I just turned off the lights one night because I'm like, oh, they're big enough. They should be fine. Yeah. I came out to I think it was like 45 dead animals, 45 dead quail. And nothing that dies ever gets frozen and sold to anybody. And they get squishy and gooey quickly. I don't even feed them my own stuff at this point.
I can imagine so.
They go on the fire pit and have bad barbecue.
Yeah, the first baby buttons that we had hatched out, the first night we're kind of like, the house is pretty warm. It's summertime. It's like probably not going to get below 80 where they are. It's like we could probably turn the light off, come downstairs in the morning, and they were like almost dead. They bounced back, but it was shocking. So then,
they when they're in large numbers, they dogpile on each other, and then the bottom ones all get smothered and die.
Okay.
And if you leave water in there, they'll run into the water, get wet, and then come back to the group to warm up, making the rest of the group wet. So like it's horrific if you don't have this set up right. They'll do immensely stupid things, at least in my mind.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how they live in the wild. It's stunning.
Oh man. Yeah, I can't imagine. Yeah, they definitely are very, very special needs little birds. So what are your kind of raise up setups like for your young animals that still, need that constant heat?
They're in a rodent drawer system.
Okay.
You can buy the little food dispensers that have the little trays. There's a small one that's only like that tall that has holes around it. You get a Tractor Supply.
Okay.
And you can use that, and they can only kick out so much food. And I found if you take the mason jar lids and put it on top of the hole on top, you're supposed to put the feeder bottle in, because there's supposed to be like a screw-on feeder bottle, so you have the tray plus the extension above it. I just get the bottoms and cover that hole so they can't get in there, because if you ever watch them, they're constantly kicking their feet as they eat, whether they're in the food or not. If they have the opportunity to get in the food, they kick it out of the food tray, and then none of them eat the food that's in the substrate. Now it's bad food. This good food, bad food. So I would say I purchase 200 pounds of food a week, and they eat about 150 pounds of food a week.
Nice.
And waste about 50 pounds of food a week.
Ungrateful birds, man.
Yeah. It's interesting for sure, but
brutal.
The end result of the whole thing is when I had the time, what I try to do is I try to get a group of people to buy at the same time, so I can just do, all right, this morning is my screwed up morning. I'll take my lunch at 7:30 in the morning so I can package everything. And that's the other pain in the ass is I can get my dry ice at 7, but I can't drop them off to UPS till 9. So I have to schedule myself where I know I'm not going to be stuck on a project somewhere all day.
Yeah.
Or I have to have them somewhere they're not going to get overheated. I can't leave them in my vehicle this time of year.
Yeah, so. You live in a bad state for maintaining boxes of frozen birds for periods of time.
I've had a couple times where in my boss's office, there's a stack of boxes, and like, I'm going to leave this here. What's that? I'm going to leave this here. Just don't ask questions. We're good. But
oh my gosh,
whatever I got to do.
Yeah. So the drawer setups that you have, is that just like pine shavings on the bottom essentially?
Yeah.
Okay. And then how often do you need I guess like how big are these tubs roughly?
They're the large cement tubs.
Oh, okay. The cement tubs.
Yeah.
Okay.
The large.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally it's not a rodent tray. It's a lizard tray from Ron St. Pierre. They use basically the same thing for lizards, so they got bigger space, so I had the room for the lights.
Got it. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Now the picture's coming together in my head late, but it's there now. So like, how many, I guess, buttons or Coternics are you running in these concrete tubs, and for how long generally until you're going to be taking them out?
For grow out, I do like somewhere around 50 for the day olds. For the Coternics, the buttons you can do as adults. You can max 20 to 30 in one of those drawers before it gets to be way too crowded.
Yeah,
20 is a little bit better. The problem I have with buttons, it's hard to tell the males from females. Apparently, you can squeeze their butt and tell by foam.
Yep.
I've not had luck with that myself. But I have a hard time telling the sex on them. The Kotornik's easier to tell the sex on, and I can get my numbers better with those. But if you have too many males in any of the enclosures, they beat up the females and overbreed them, and you get less production and lower fertility. So I try to keep an eye on the buttons that are normal wild type are obvious which are the males. They got the brown wings, the blue chest. It's okay. That's obviously a male, but all the designer morph types that are mixed in with my animals.
Sure.
No idea.
Yeah.
Kotorniks, like I say, I do about 50 day olds, and if I'm pulling them at a week for feeding, which I've been doing now for like the bird snakes, I do them at a week and then at 2 weeks, and then restart the tray. They do okay as long as I half them at about a week. If I leave 50 in there, then they dogpile and kill each other.
Okay.
So they get a little bit of size, and then they just do dumb things. It's not even the space, because they'll all get to one corner, but they're just the volume of animals to get underneath the heat light, and that was what they're doing, gets to be too great, and then it becomes a mound of Kotorniks, and the bottom of the mound does not fare well in that scenario. So you've got to half the mound and then split them up. And I mean, if you get to that level, you'll quickly learn what that level is and what the size is. Just looking at the behavior of the animals.
Yeah. No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. So then at what age, let's say you're like doing a replacement of your Kotorniks breeders, at what age are you putting those animals outside?
When I keep them inside too long because they dust up my place. Like you probably put them out at 8 to 10 weeks. Okay. I do it when they start laying eggs. Like, you're definitely adult now. Yeah. Because I don't want to. I have my 2 outside groups, and I don't want to eliminate everything out of there, but anything that's beat up, the mosquitoes wreak havoc on them. I learned that we have poultry mosquitoes, which don't bite humans. Good to know, but they do wreak havoc on them. Interesting. Trying to find anything that works to keep them away has been difficult. But if they get attacked too much, or the females get beat up too much, they get they'll too many males in there will rip the feathers off the females, so they're featherless, and the mosquitoes get in there, and then they start getting swollen eyes. So if I start seeing that, I'll just call them out to just keep. I don't want animals out there suffering. If they don't have their feathers, that's the problem. And then I built all my enclosures with rollouts for the eggs, and then I take the cement tubs and put hay in it and put them in there because they're happier in the hay. Yeah. And I'm not a big bird guy, but if you give them a cement mixing bin of hay in an otherwise wire mesh cage, it's fucking adorable. Because they're like kids at Chuck E. Cheese diving in the ball pit. They just go diving into the hay. They pop their head up, they look around, and they'll open their mouths like, aha! It is. I did it. And I'm like, all right, whatever. Let me just give you guys these, because I was having a problem with egg breakage, and also the weight of the food or the water was too great for my wire mesh. So I had a sag, and I was getting broken eggs there, or wet eggs, or dirty eggs. So I'm like, hey, let me try this. And I did it. And I'm like, all right, I had to call my wife over. I'm like, come here and look at this. This is ridiculously adorable. So she came over. We're like, okay, we got to do this all the time now. Like they are obviously expressing joy here. This is quail happiness. And then they seem, when I do that, I throw coffee grounds in there as well. And they bathe in the coffee grounds and the hay, and it seems to keep the mosquitoes off them more as well. So it kind of does a twofold. But then, as long as they have good hay, I don't have any egg breakage because they lay the eggs in the hay. Okay. So I've got rollout just to
pretty exclusively.
Well, they're not smart, so they do drop them around the cage. But predominantly, if I pull, like when I pull at night, it's somewhere between 60 to 80 eggs. I'll get probably 10 or 20 free roaming, and the rest will be in the hay. Okay. So I went through all the effort of figuring out how big egg is to figure out how big my rollout should be, my spacing and all that, and now I don't even use it.
Hey, that's how it goes. Sometimes the animals end up teaching you what they want at some point in time. So
yeah, well, I guess my big point there is the rollout gap, and to have the out, then you have to have a downspout and a return to catch the eggs. So then you have to cover that with more wire mesh. Otherwise, you have a direct entry point, and the eggs are available for anything to grab. So you got to have coverage on your rollout. Well, that's all spots that are now accessible for predators.
Sure.
Snakes and rodents. So if you eliminate the rollout completely and just do the hay, you can make a more secure enclosure.
Yeah.
But thicker wire, or the rodents will go right through it.
Sure. So at this point, if you were building them again from scratch, would you just stick with the tubs of hay, or would you still do the rollout?
I probably would skip the rollout at this point because it's also a pain in the ass to build it.
Fair enough.
It's just finding the right height. It's when it works, it's great, but then they end up somehow managing to poop in such a way that it doesn't fall through the mesh, and then they collect that more poop there, or where I have the cross beams of extra support in the middle. They poop on that, and then that creates chunks, and that's in the rollout section. So now I got to clean the rollout. It just adds. It's one more layer of work.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes a lot of sense. Okay,
I just get the hose, hit it all at the hose during the day, early in the morning before the sun's coming up, and I hose the whole thing out, knock off any layer of poop on any of the wood, the solid structures within the build, and clean out the rollout. That's a once a week deal.
Okay.
And that way, if they get wet, they've got all day to dry off. You're not letting them get wet and then put them in at night. The only problem I've had is I haven't lost any adults out there, but when the rain hits strong on different weird angles, it'll soak the whole enclosure or fill my bins with hay with water. So then I've got a quail poop soup filled bowl of hay and eggs, which is not great.
It doesn't sound great. Yeah.
No.
It doesn't sound great at all. Okay.
So everything I come up with, there's another fine opportunity on the other side of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then to cover it, you need to make a superhuman sized, little tent or something over that. Otherwise you'd hit your head on it constantly.
Yeah. Well, I have it right against my building, so they're protected from the sun with my building for the whole day, except for when it's at the apex of the day.
Okay.
And I've put more metal out the back, more roofing material out the back to cover the roll off from the roof coming onto them. So I don't have that anymore, but I can't do that off the front. Otherwise I'm going to slice my head open on a piece of roofing tin.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be bad.
So, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's lovely. Okay. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, definitely very curious about scaling up the quail. They're when your options are between, day old chicks and, Coturnix or button quail that have been eating for a longer period, you can control what they're eating. You can have them fresh. It's just such a no-brainer to me if it's something that you're capable of doing.
Yeah. I don't know how much better they are having eaten the quail diet that's there. I don't free range them, which would be where they would get those really cool micronutrients that you'd really want your animals to have. But I don't know. I have a whole bunch of wire that I need to start building cages with anyway. I might build a outside run. But just me looking at it, it's like it means I got to bend over to pick up the eggs, and that's just going to be terrible. But I think they to your point, they might be a healthier feeder at that point. So maybe I just do raise ups on the ground outside and let them peck at whatever they want.
Yeah,
it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be super interesting. I mean, is there anything that you add to their diet or their water for the sake of the nutritional factor?
If you get bob whites will tear up vegetation. Coturnix don't seem to do it as much.
Okay.
So when I had bob whites, I would just grab Biden's alba, the weed that has the white flower and the little sticks that have the 2 forks on the end that stick to your socks constantly. That's Biden's alba, and that's like a great feeder for everything. And dandelion, I throw the 2 of those in with both groups of quail, and the bob whites, our native North American bob whites, would destroy that stuff. They'd tear it apart and eat it. The Cotornics don't seem to care. What I'm doing now is I've got duckweed, which is a real high protein green that I have in my turtle enclosures, and when I do a drain off and a water change on them, a bunch of the duckweed washes out, so I get handfuls of semi-dry duckweed and throw it to the Cotornics, and they seem to like that stuff. So that's giving them definitely some different food items, but otherwise they're eating the crushed corn grain.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, yeah, I mean, I appreciate you talking about the quail as well. I know, they may not be the most engaging for everyone on a reptile podcast, but honestly, whenever I've had any sort of feeder discussions on here, it's been very, very well received by a lot of people.
Actually, you cost me money with your feeder discussions, man. We've got a couple buildings outside, or not buildings, a couple carports I'm going to try to do some rodents outside with. Because of your that was one of your podcasts I managed to catch, and we're going to try to do it because
cool.
I've said for absolute years now, a couple decades now at this point, that rodents are not a complete diet, and it just commercial bred rodents are fed a commercial diet that's designed to make rodents gain weight so they reach sexual maturity sooner, so they can reproduce faster to make more rodents. That's the end of the goal of the rodent diet. The rodent diet does not give a shit about your health of your snake.
Well, and even to make that worse, the end goal of that rodent diet is so that the results of the testing they do on those rodents can be more easily read.
Yeah.
Like,
so it's
nothing. Yeah.
It's so your topic of giving them other food items is great.
Yeah. No, I definitely I always like when I hear people doing that. I have people reach out after those episodes and say that they're giving it a shot and stuff like that, and I absolutely love that. Here's a quail question. Do you ever grind up food for the babies, or do they just peck at the bigger crumble pieces?
Oh, who asked that? No, there's Purina Game Bird starter that's got a smaller grind to it.
Okay.
That should be available at Tractor Supply.
Okay.
They have it in, I think, I want to say it's a 40-pound, not a 50-pound bag, or a 10-pound bag. So if you only have a handful, you can try the 10-pound bag. But yeah, it is smaller. I did see that on some of the care sheets to grind up the bigger quail food, the pellets. But I just get the ground version of either type I get. I don't get any of the pellets at all.
Is it the same food? Are there any differences between the starter and the regular?
Yeah, the starter has different protein contents and things to stimulate growth.
Okay.
And then if you can find Purina Game Bird layer, that would be my suggestion for go-to. But if you're not, like I said, it's one of Purina's other name brands. They have a Game Bird maintenance diet, and the maintenance diet has lower nutrients, doesn't have the extra calcium and extra nutrients for the egg laying, which the Game Bird layer has, but Tractor Supply just quit carrying it. If you go and you order it online, or you go into the store and order it, it makes me insane that you expect me as a company to come into your store, sit down at your computer in your store to order food that I've asked you to order for me. Like, I am buying 200 pounds a fucking week. Can you get it? Like, this isn't that hard. So I bought up everything I could find. If I go Okeechobee, Tractor Supply, if I drive all the way down there, apparently they still carry it for whatever reason, where no one else is allowed to carry it anymore. So I'll buy whatever I can get from them, buy them out whenever I go down there. So I'll get 8, 10, 12 bags. But otherwise, I say that I do the mix of the Purina It's just layer crumble, and that's just a general poultry, mainly chicken aimed layer. Game birds have different nutrient requirements, so the game bird maintenance fills that niche. So you combine the two, you kind of make your own.
Okay.
But
cool. All right. Hell yeah.
I can send you the pictures of it. I can't remember the name of the other company right now.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. Definitely very curious about, everything we can do to maximize the quail experience. So all right.
No, they're great, man. And I imagine, I don't know how the scrubs are to get feeding, but I can't imagine they would ever refuse a quail thrown at them.
No, they're actually like the last thing that I want to feed the quail. I've had a number of scrubs get stuck on birds, and that's not necessarily. It's been a problem for people who want them. I'm like, yeah, I got this one, but it's on quail, and they're like, no, I don't want that snake.
Hey,
but
you know a guy that has quail, man.
Yes, sure do. But like for the tigers, for really all the colubrids, some of the venomous too, like the Mangshan vipers, even the palm vipers, would love to be able to feed them some quail as well. So, definitely very excited about the prospect of. But yeah, the tigers in particular for me were the ones that I really wanted the quail for, and then Brooke with her indigos wanted them as well. So
yeah, so all the Crebos I throw the day old buttons to, and that's zero effort. Like, I don't even have to mess with them.
Cool.
All the yellowtails are always a pain in the ass to get going, and they take it maybe not the first feeding, but by the third offering, they're all eating.
Okay.
No problems, no tricks, no games. But I'm throwing to them live. You might have to dance them if you got them frozen.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything is that I've tried them on. I've asked all my customers. I've asked that they're like, yeah, no, absolutely, they worked. It was amazing. Cool. I got, one guy's like, dude, you saved a dozen diamonds. I couldn't get these things to eat, and they all ate first try. I'm like, cool.
Nice. Yeah, that's always a good feeling, throwing that quail in, and like you get a feeding response from a snake that you've never seen one from before.
Yeah, that's
happened to me with plenty of scrub pythons, and it's kind of a bittersweet moment because I'm like, all right, it ate, but now it's on quail. But with some species, it's not nearly as much of an issue. But
I do have a jungle that only wants quail as well. Now that you mention that, I got one jungle carpet, but she came to me as a weird feeder, and she was a mouser or a quail feeder. Well, she was a mouser, and I started offering her quail, and now she's much larger as a quail feeder. She takes adult quail.
Well, there you go. Yeah, that's pretty big, all right, especially for a carpet python. So
yeah, if you got scrubs stuck on quail and you're raising your own, it won't be a problem at all.
No,
you'll have plenty of adult quail to get rid of after the first year or so.
Yeah, that is for sure. Yeah, for ones that I plan on keeping, definitely not an issue at all. And then I guess that'll be what I'll do. If anyone's like, oh well, I don't have access to quail, I'll just send them the link to your Instagram. And I'm like, now you do. Oh man. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. It's already getting pretty late, and as you've been saying throughout the episode, you got to be up in only a handful of hours. I do think a round 2 is most certainly in store, because considering we didn't get to almost everything you keep aside from Spilotes, so I feel like at some point definitely gotta do this one again. But I really appreciate your time tonight, man. I really love this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I said it off air, but I just officially, you're doing a great job, and every podcast I've heard from you has been fantastic. So
thank you.
Thanks for putting out some really good content.
Hey, I'm happy to do my part, and I love doing it. So it's been more than my pleasure. So for anyone who wants to keep up with what you're doing, inquire about tiger rats or quail or anything, where can you be found on the internet and whatnot?
Instagram and Facebook, it's Snakes Unlimited Jason Hood, or just Jason Hood on Facebook.
Okay.
So I'm pretty easy to find.
Okay.
Or catch me at Tenley or Daytona.
Yep. And for quail, either of those platforms are a good place to contact you?
Yeah. Buck a piece, 50 count minimum.
All right.
I'm easy.
Not bad. Cool, man. Well, once again, thank you so much for your time tonight. This was a great conversation, and you know, you've been someone I've wanted to get on the podcast for quite a while, so I'm glad you finally made it work.
And I'm glad we get the list of questions on quail for Brooke.
Yep. Yes, me as well. So, all right. Well,
all right, man. Appreciate it.
Yep. I'll close the show out real quick, but once again, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Yeah, man.
All righty. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning into that episode. Definitely one of my favorites so far, for sure. I always love talking about Spilotes, as you guys know, and talking about feeders as well. So we accomplished both goals in one episode. And as I said earlier on, Jason's one of the people I've known for the longest within this industry, someone who I've always really looked up to and admired. So overall, just absolutely thrilled with the episode. Again, if you are here on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. Like, comment, just share all that good stuff. Audio platforms as well: Spotify, Apple, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts from, you can find the Trap Talk Reptile Network. For me, I'm on Instagram at scrubshepherd, Stephen Kush on Facebook, at Kush Reptile, or Stephen Kush on YouTube as well. I drop a new video every single Friday there, kind of more of a vlog style video. I'm also Kush Reptile on MORPH Market, and I am here every single Wednesday on the Trap Talk Reptile Network. So with all that said, thank you guys for tuning into the show. We'll catch you all back here next week for a new